Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is the Simple Handmade Everyday Podcast, where I talk about living a creative, intentional life. I like to chat about quilting, knitting, sometimes cross-stitching, what I'm reading and watching, and a little bit about self-care, productivity, and keeping a cozy, organized home. I've got my cup of tea in hand, so grab yours and let's settle in for a chat. This is episode 108. Hello, welcome. Gosh, it's so good to be here. I never mean to take the longer breaks between episodes, but here we are. First, let's talk about tea. I often forget to talk about my cup of tea. So today I am drinking Harney & Sons Black Casket Bourbon, and it is described as a smoky black tea with vanilla and caramel. And I'm not a big flavored tea person, but Harney & Sons, when they talk about vanilla and caramel, it's like very subtle undertones. So I believe this was a gift, and it's just in the most beautiful, like navy blue and copper tin. It's beautiful. And it's in the tea bags, which, I often do loose leaf tea, and it's always a little bit of a treat to have a high quality tea bag because then I can be lazy. I do like this tea, but I don't love it. And the one reason is it's the smoky element. So I'm not a person that really likes smoked meat. If a recipe calls for smoked paprika, I will not use smoked. I don't like smoked paprika. I'm not into the smoky flavor. And it's not overwhelming, but it's there. So I don't think I'll repurchase this. But if this is your jam, if something like smoky, and I guess that's what the Black Casket Bourbon is, the smoky caskets that they age bourbon in, that's what that's about, then this might totally be your jam. What is super fun is that I'm drinking it out of a mug that my son's girlfriend made. She is very into ceramics, and she makes some gorgeous coffee mugs, and I bought one from her, and when she would see it, she was unhappy with a few little elements, like she didn't like the handle and stuff. So she made what I consider the sister cup, where she feels like she corrected those things. I mean, I love both of them, but this one's a little bit bigger, this mug, and maybe I'll take a picture and put it in the show notes. And I do like a generous portion of coffee or tea, so it's like my new favorite mug. I love it. Well, it is December 10th, so we're 2 weeks before Christmas Eve, and, full Christmas mode activated around here. Well, it will not be complete till the kids are here, but I'm decorated. I actually just put the ornaments on the tree last night. It's just had lights since the weekend after Thanksgiving, and then I went and added more lights because I think it's about time we replace our tree. They're kind of dim. The lights are dim and there's not enough, so I added that. And I just love a Christmas tree with just lights on it, so that's been fun. But once I get the actual ornaments, and it's all the ornaments from when they were little and things, then it just has a whole new level of specialness. So yeah, I just keep trying new things. Is anyone else like me that I get out all the Christmas stuff and I lay it out on our dining room table / sewing table, and I always feel a little overwhelmed. Like, how did I do this last year? The last 2 years, I've taken photos of how I've done the tablescapes and things, and I look back and I'm like, I don't really like that. So I try something new every year. Last year, I went big on real garland that I got from Costco, and my husband expressed that he didn't love that it was a little like Dr. Seussy for him. It was a little Seussian. So I backed off of that this year. But anyways, it's all done, and I just love getting up in the morning and turning on the Christmas tree lights and sitting there with my coffee. So that's been really fun. The kids are going to start rolling in the next few weeks. Ben will be home from college. Not exactly sure when. He has to check his work schedule, and then the two older ones, Chloe and Jonah, they'll be here like on the 21st, pretty much through. They're leaving at different times, but I think we'll have a good solid. Chloe will be here for 10 days from Chicago, and I'm super excited about that. What I'm curious about is those of you who are ahead of me on this journey with older kids, if you wouldn't mind sharing what you do with your older kids. I mean, we are having to let go of some of our older traditions just because they just don't fit anymore, and maybe find some new ones that are more appropriate for this season of life. I used to always do the pajamas on Christmas Eve, and now that nobody's growing And boys are not super into pajamas. I haven't done that for the last few years because, it seems like a dumb way to spend, $100 minimum when they maybe will never wear them again. So Chloe does, but I don't think the boys do. And we still do, make some hot chocolate, and we walk around. We have a particular neighborhood that is very cool with the Christmas lights. We still do that. That's fun. But, there's just, we don't make as many Christmas cookies, and the boys are uninterested in that anymore. Chloe does that, and she and I do that together. But, I'm just curious about what are your, new traditions that make sense for older kids? I would love to know about that. Well, I know we are all busy, so let's get right to it. But before we do, I would like to thank Aliso for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. As you know, Aliso makes high-quality irons and ironing accessories. Aliso Smart Irons are the only irons with an auto lift feature. I love this feature. By simply touching the handle, the iron lowers down and is ready to press. You take your hand off, the iron lifts up, preventing scorched fabrics, and is so much easier on your wrist and shoulders. I absolutely love that feature of my Aliso irons. The new Aliso M3 Pro Project Iron, the new smaller crafting iron, is tailor-made for sewing, quilting, crafting, but it has the performance of a full-size iron in a sleek little compact design. I've got a review of that iron coming up later in the next segment. All of these irons come in multiple gorgeous colors, coral and aqua and, an orchid, purple one, just so many different colors, just so that you can match your iron to your own personal style. Not to mention the collaborations they have with different makers that have an even kind of funkier approach. But also, let's not forget about the Aliso ironing accessories, which I also love. Did you know that they make wonderful ironing board covers, and they have 14 by 14 inch wool mats, and those I've done a review on those before, and those easily connect together with these little silicone connectors so that you can create your own sort of custom ironing surface. You can do it all the way across your ironing board, or put 4 together for a really large ironing surface on a table, because these are thick wool mats. They're like a half an inch thick, and they also have these cute little ironing carry bags. So if you are going to a retreat or something like that, you can protect your iron in one of those. I will put a link in the show notes to all of these things on the Aliso website, so feel free to check those out. And thank you, Aliso. Okay, so let's talk some quilting. I am sort of ashamed to admit that since our last podcast, I have not made real progress. I have 3 quilts done with backs, ready to go to the long armor, but I just have not actually done that yet. You know what I did on the Black Friday when that quarter shop was having their big 20% off sale? I actually thought, I'm going to go buy all 3 backs that I need for these quilts. So I pulled them out to do measurements and realized that 2 of them I had already purchased backs for. So that's how long these have been in the works. Has that ever happened to you? But I did have one that I can't remember which one it's for, because I did switch things around when I thought, that back will work better for this quilt. But I treated myself for the first time to a 108-inch wide back. So I don't even have to do the seam to make the back. And I used thatched fabric. I think it makes a great quilt back because it's not solid, sort of a semi-solid. I just love thatched, that line from Moda designed by Robin Pickens. So I did it in seafoam. I have a thatched color card, and I picked out 2 colors. Either one of these would be a good choice. And then one of them, the seafoam, turned out to be available as a 108-inch. And it turned out to be cheaper to do it that way than to buy it, separately and sew them together. And I felt like I'd done that math in the past, and it wasn't cheaper to do the wide back, but I'm just thrilled that I get to not have to prepare that. I just have to trim it. So the pattern that is next up that my husband keeps bugging me about is the ridges pattern that I am planning to make for this room that I'm recording in right now. It used to be my daughter's room, and I don't know, I feel weird that we're going to call them the kids' rooms. they almost seem like guest rooms because we have banished all vestiges of their childhood from these rooms. But it's got a queen size bed, and I'm going to put this quilt over the top. And I have so it's I'll put a link in the show notes. I had one last episode too, but it's a series of like 5 mountain ranges. So it's up to me to figure out the shading of it. And I've learned from photographs and from driving around here that contrary to what would be, sort of intuitive to me, the darker mountains are in front of you and they get lighter. And I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out which shades. I mean, I think I'm going to go with like 3 shades of blue and 2 shades of kind of gold for light. And it's like I need to pick out 5 fabrics, really 3 in the blues. And I'm like, I can't do it. So I just need to bite the bullet. I might call Robin and go, Robin, help me figure this out. Because she's very helpful. So I know that once I have the fabrics, this pattern is going to come together in no time. It is just a series. It looks curvy, but also ragged because they're mountains. And it's just any of the changes, the raggedness is just, they're half rectangles mostly, maybe some half square triangles too, but it'll come together so fast. So if I just need to get over that hurdle and get over myself. I was on Instagram today, and I have one of my very favorite Instagram follows is Holly Grove Quilts. I'll put a link in the show notes. I've talked about her before. She makes these absolutely fabulous modern quilts, and she had taken some modern improv blocks, I don't know how big, let's just say an 8 or 10 inch block. And she just spray based it, just mounted them on a piece of like heavy duty matting. So, that was white. And she had them just on shelves in a bathroom. And it was just like such a cool, easy way to decorate. And I've got these 2 rooms that I recently redid that I need to fill with some things on the walls. And I thought, oh my gosh, that seems like a really good idea. So I might try something like that. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. The other quilt I was thinking about, and I don't know if I will pull the trigger on it, is I saw on the Fat Quarter Shop has a quilt kit called Tea Party by Flamingo Toes. She designs for Riley Blake Designs. She has a tea time themed collection that's out right now, and this adorable quilt pattern that has these teapots and like stacked teacups. I mean, it's super cute. And the quilt kit is like $119, which is not a bad price for the pattern and the quilt and the fabrics. I thought, so anyways, pondering that one. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger on it. It is definitely, a little bit on the cutesier side, which I've moved away from a bit, but I don't know, it's tea, people. I might not be able to resist it. So, okay, so the other thing, a couple more things to talk about before I get to the Aliso iron review is Fat Quarter Shop also sent a book called Celebrate with Quilts by Lisa Alexander and Susan Aki. And you may know Lisa Alexander as Moda Lisa. She's like the director of marketing for Moda and an unbelievable fabric designer and quilt pattern designer with multiple books to her credit, and she and Susan Aki have a couple books together. So this is called Celebrate with Quilts, and it's a hefty book. It's very thick, and there's so much in this. I'm going to be so glad to have this on my bookshelf. So what's cool about this is that at the beginning of the book, they have 60 sampler blocks. And they're just all different styles of blocks that you might want to use for a single quilt or a sampler quilt. So it's like a 60 block quilt, block, whatever, what do I want to say? Like a reference book. And so they have all of those 60 blocks and then 12 quilts that put those blocks together in different ways that can be seasonal. And some of them are more, it's not over the top seasonal. They've got this one called the Blueprint Quilt, which is kind of cool. Is they've kind of laid something out with some connector blocks, and to kind of suggest how you could put together your own favorite sampler quilt. There's a blue and white quilt. See, that doesn't seem very seasonal to me. But then they have these ones that there's definitely a very 4th of July quilt. They have one, the Irish weave quilt. So that's kind of, maybe for March or St. Patrick's Day. Here's the flag one. The flag quilt's super cool. How big is this? Why can't I see it? I mean, there it is, 85 by 68. So it's a full-size quilt, and the whole thing makes a flag. And in each of the red stripes are different quilt blocks set on point with red coping triangles. So they make the stripes, and then of course you've got the stars in the blue stars, and it's called the Land That I Love quilt, and it is, it's just very super cool. There is one that is, hearts for Valentine's Day. So anyways, the point is that here's a Halloween one, that they have 60 blocks, 12 quilts that can be seasonal or not, depending on how you color them. And it's just an absolutely beautifully done book. So I will put a link in the show notes and you can check it out for yourself. I also wanted to mention, I think a lot of you who listen also follow my friend Frances Dowell with the Quilt Fiction podcast. She writes quilt fiction stories that you can, listen to on her podcast. And she comes out every year with a Christmas story, and that is going to be coming out soon. I think probably later this week. So if you don't already subscribe to that podcast, I will put a link in the show notes, and you absolutely should. So she wrote the book, Friendship Album 1933, which, and then she's done a 1934 follow-up to that as well. That's kind of just finished up recently. And there are, these characters from that book, and then she has been writing Thanksgiving and Christmas stories that take those characters and put them in a different place, like usually a younger version of themselves. And so it's always so fun to get the backstory on some of these characters. So I just highly recommend that you check that out. And then she has the Story Guild. It's a membership site where you have access to a lot more of the stories that she's doing on a regular basis. So definitely check that out. All right, now I want to talk about the Aliso M3 Pro project iron that Aliso so kindly sent me to check out and to tell you about. So I have the last version of their project iron as well, and this one is a little bit different. It's definitely an upgrade to it. It's just a tiny bit bigger, but still plenty, compact to take to a retreat, or if you're the type that takes your sewing on vacation, it's still plenty compact for that. And as I mentioned before, they have these little wool or felt carry containers for them that would really protect it. But okay, let's talk about the features of this thing. First of all, one thing I love about Aliso irons is that they have such generous cords. So this has an 8-inch cord, which I love. It is a steam iron. If you so choose, there's a steam setting on it. You don't have to use the steam, but it takes tap water. And I hate to have a gallon of distilled water around for my iron. I did that for many years, so I so appreciate that it's tap water. So one thing about this iron is it gets hot. It is as powerful as a full-size iron. And I put it to the test this week by just pulling, some crumpled fabrics out of my stash. I was testing a block for a friend, and it was a bit of a smaller block. And as you probably know, that when you piece smaller blocks, it's a little hard to get them to lay completely flat. So first of all, I pulled my scraps out of my stash and ironed those flat. So you can do it. I tried it in all the different ways. I tried it just with it on the hottest setting, but no steam. It did a good job. Then I tried the steam, and the steam is quite powerful. I even looked up, there's a YouTube video from Aliso on these irons to double check how you use the steam. And you do kind of pick it up a little bit, and there's these 2 buttons on the side, super easy to just squeeze. And one of them activates steam at the top of the iron, one activates steam at the bottom, so you can be very deliberate about where you want the steam. Like I just want it here at the top. That would be the one I think I would most often use. I just need this little spot right here that's stubborn. I need a little steam. Or if you press them both at the same time, you get a powerful blast of steam. So the steam works amazing. And then I also tried it with this stuff that Minky gave me to try. It's called Quilting and Crafting Steamer Boost by Magic is the company. And it worked really well. If I'm being honest, I don't exactly know what it is. I think it's not starch, but it's to be used to boost the results of steaming. So it says that it is perfect for removing fold lines, finishing quilts, wall hangings, table runners, tote bags, anything like that you can that you want to steam or iron. It's going to just make it go that much flatter. So it worked well in every case with this little Aliso iron. What's different about this than other Aliso previous irons is, so the last project iron, they both come with a little silicone mat that fits over it for storage, and it has a little thing where you can hang it. So if you got one of those pegboards or something, you can hang it. But then when you take it off and flip it over, it's a silicone mat that you can leave your iron horizontal, because if you've been using Aliso irons, you have been taught to do that, which is a little bit of a hazard. When you use someone else's iron, you use that muscle memory. So that still has that. You can still just keep it horizontal on top of the silicone mat, but you can also sit it up on its end because they have moved the cord over to the side. And I've found out that when you are not using it and you have it up on its end, it has a 30-minute shutoff, so it stays on for a good long time. If you keep it horizontal down on the silicone mat, it has a 10-minute shutoff. So it's good that you've got some options there. And so where the cord is best placed for if you're left-handed, but there are instructions for how to move that cord to the other side if you are left-handed. And I have a friend, Vicky, who tested that, and it works just fine. So that's a pretty cool feature too, that you can adjust that. Something that they have that I have never seen in an iron is there's a little light that as soon as it turns on, a light shines, and so it's shining right. It's like a little headlamp right onto your fabric, which really helps you, see little wrinkles and creases and things that you haven't quite gotten out. Especially, I don't know, we probably all work in some questionable lighting, so that really helps. And there's this super cool detailer tip where it comes out a little, the sole plate of it comes out a little further than the tip of the top of the iron, so that you could really get in there to, like if you do applique, or if you really need to get into a corner. I'm thinking that the next time I have to iron a shirt, which I do not do very often and really try not to, but if I have to, this is the perfect iron for it, because it's got this thin little tip that can really get in there at the shoulders and in the cuffs and things like that. And not to mention, you could probably just hang it up on a hanger and use the little steamer thing and just steam it, because the steam is so powerful. So I feel like I really put it through its paces and absolutely loved it. I'm so glad to have it. So when I used it last night, I was working on the small block from a template, and I was so nice to just have it right next to me on a wool mat. And so to just do those little, I just need to press this part open and then put it back under the machine with the next piece, and I didn't have to get up and walk to the ironing board. Once you get to big blocks, you might want a bigger iron, so then you have the big Aliso iron. But for when you're doing units, just smaller units that make up a quilt block, something like this is completely perfect. So anyways, that's my honest review of the M3 Pro project iron from Aliso. All right, let's talk for a second about cross-stitching and knitting, in which I do not have a lot to report. I am just plugging away on the same projects I was working on last month. I've got that little Christmas cross-stitch project that was the Fat Quarter Shop Mystery, and it's super cute, and I love working on it. It's just there's a lot to fill in on it, so it's been a little bit of slow going, but I've made a real concentrated effort to finish my elementary wrap. I'm working on it not every day, but a lot of the days of the week, and I was working on it last night, and I think it's as tall as me now, and I'm well into the third ball of yarn, and this is the yarn's from Pearl Soho, and it's the linen quill, and it is so beautiful to work with, and I am determined to finish this winter and get it blocked. I'd really love to take it with me to QuiltCon, because I like to have like a wrap on an airplane. So I just need to figure out how big is the pattern. I haven't looked at that for a long time. I was just going to go to till I finish this ball of yarn, but at some point it's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be, have you ever seen that picture of Lenny Kravitz where he's like basically wearing like a full blanket around his neck? It's starting to give those vibes. So I need to stop and measure. So maybe I will be done with that soon. And then I am just hankering to knit some socks. And I've got the yarn, and I've already, put it into a ball and everything. It is ready to go. But I'm going to be monogamous with my elementary wrap. And I'll probably put a link in the show notes, but I've been talking about this for literally over 2.5 years now, I think. So I apologize for that. All right, let's switch over to books. I have a few finishes I want to talk about. First of all, from an audiobook standpoint, I finished Still Life by Sarah Winman. And this book, it's very long as an audiobook, and it was some slow going for me. I've been listening to it for a long time, or, I've abandoned it for long periods of time. It took me a while to get into it, but now, once I got some momentum on it, I love it. And I want my daughter to read it, and my best friend is going to Italy in January, and a lot of this book takes place in Florence, and she's visiting Florence, and I'm like, as soon as you get back, you need to read this book because they name drop places in Florence, and it's just so fun to go, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've been there. Oh, I've seen that. And you can picture it so well. So I think I've talked about it before, but it is one of those sort of epic stories. It starts during World War II with this woman named Evelyn, and she's kind of an older woman, and she's working for the resistance during the war, and she meets this young soldier named Ulysses. Gosh, I hope that's right. And I finished this a while ago. And you follow their stories separately. And I never know how to talk about these things without giving too much away, but they each live some very interesting lives. And then, of course, you just know things are going to come together at some point. And it is just, the war finishes up pretty quickly at the beginning of this book. So it's just like kind of what happens with them afterwards. And it's got some amazing characters and some, great character arcs. And then, it takes place in Florence a lot. And who doesn't love that? I wouldn't have known that Florence was such an amazing place before we went, but it is. So I'd highly recommend Still Life. And I also finished up a book I've talked about before called The Taste of Ginger by Mancy Shaw. It's her debut novel, and it's about a woman who was born in India. Her parents immigrated. She lived in Chicago, I think, when she was about 7, and she grew up really just trying to really tamp down the Indian part of her and just, really be as American as she could be, and kind of semi-resented her heritage. And then she ends up going back to India because of a family tragedy, and she learns a whole lot about herself and her culture and the caste system that figures in a big way. And it is very interesting. So she came from a higher caste in India, but when she was in America, she was often the only brown person in a room, and was always trying. She always felt on the outside and always was just trying to fit in. And then when she goes to India, she's considered an NRI, a non-resident Indian, and so she doesn't really fit in there anymore either. And then she befriends somebody, but they're from a lower caste, and so that's got issues. And so she just, all of these things about race and privilege and how you fit into the world and how easy that is for you is all becomes very apparent in a very charming story. I have already got her second book, and I'm very and it's not a continuation, it's just her second novel, and I'm looking forward to reading that because I really enjoyed The Taste of Ginger. I've been trying to read a bit of a nonfiction book every morning, and I read 10% Happier by Stan Hares, and it was really, really good. So Stan Hares was a reporter and a news anchor, I think mostly for ABC, whatever whatever channel or whatever network Peter Jennings was on. Peter Jennings was his mentor. And so the Stan Hares, it's written as a memoir, which I don't always love memoirs, but it was just very entertaining and very interesting. So he is, he's the kind of guy that's, gets all the assignments to go to Iraq, and he's always in the war zones. He's always doing these hard reporting jobs. And then he had the religion beat for a long time, and somewhere along the line he had a lot of anxiety, as you might with jobs like this, and he was trying to figure out how to sort of calm down his monkey mind. And he stumbled across the practice of meditation. But it really wasn't that simple, because he went through multiple gurus to find what worked for him. And he really takes you along in great detail on that journey, including going on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, which he takes you through day by day. And it was very, very interesting. So anyways, I've been meaning to start my own meditation practice. But until I started talking to you about this, I'd kind of forgotten about it. But scientifically, meditation is proven to be a healthful thing to do. And so that is something that I would like to work into my life a little bit more. So if you're at all interested in that, 10% happier. And the title comes from someone asking him, why do you meditate? And he said, I don't know, it makes me 10% happier. And that just seems so achievable, right? It's just, it's not, his life was not transformed by this. It's just it's just a thing that I find a very useful tool to, for my everyday life. So I enjoyed that. I started looking for some Christmas type reads, and I don't know where I saw this, but on Kindle, they had for 99 cents Agatha Christie's Adventure of the Christmas Pudding. It turned out, I thought I was buying a novel. It was a short story, but you get what you pay for. It was 99 cents. It was very, I read it in 2 days during my lunch break. And it was very cute. It's a Hercule Poirot story. So I don't know if it's still on sale, but it was just the little interjection of a Christmas story that I really enjoyed. Of course, my yearly reread of Winter Solstice is underway. This year I'm doing it as an audiobook. I have the print book, the ebook, and the audiobook, so whatever I'm in the mood for, I can pick it up. And so that's my my audiobook right now. I have talked about it forever, by Rosamund Pilcher. You know what? I've talked about this book for so many years. I'm not even going to go into it, but it is a wonderful read. And I have found out that when somebody ever mentions it online, so many people go, I read it every single year. I thought I invented reading Winter Solstice every year, but apparently not. Lots of people do it. And I'm curious if you have a book that you read every Christmas, a novel that you reread every year. I would love it if you would share that with me, because I would love to kind of expand. I'm not super into a lot of these seasonal things like that. I don't really do the Hallmark Christmas movies, but I do love a good story, and that it does kind of get you in the Christmas mood. So let me know about that. The other book that I am reading is Esme Cahill. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Fails Spectacularly. So it's Esme Cahill, Cahill, Fails Spectacularly by Marie Bostwick, our own Marie Bostwick, who writes the quilt fiction series, the Cobbled Court series, which I absolutely loved. And she hasn't really done a quilting book in a while. There is some sewing in this book. I think every one of her books contains a little bit of sewing, but it is good. So I follow her on Instagram, and she mentioned that it was $2.99 or something for Kindle. So I bought it, and it's really cute. I don't want to go too much into it because I'm only about a third of the way through. But it's about a woman who she is into her professional life. So she's in her late 20s, and she's a book editor, and she fails spectacularly, and she ends up going back to her home, where she was raised by her grandparents, and they have a resort in this beautiful area, right on a lake. I want to say it's in North Carolina. I'm not really sure. But it's getting kind of run down, and she kind of is in the right place at the right time to help out to bring this place back to life. So that's the setup. We'll see where it goes, but I really am enjoying Marie Bostwick's writing. I think she's a fabulous writer, and she tells some great stories, so I am enjoying that. Let's talk some TV shows. So I went on record last podcast that I didn't really get why Ted Lasso was such a big thing. And I have since finished Ted Lasso, and I have to tell you that last season, he absolutely grew on me. And by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, I love Ted Lasso. And I get that what's interesting about that show is that it's a very positive, wholesome show on many levels. And what is a mismatch for me is the number of F-bombs they drop per minute in that show. Extremely high. So it's one of those things where if I had a middle schooler at this point, I might want to watch the show with them because it's really got some good positive messages, but I could not get past the language of it. I mean, also there's some sex stuff that I probably would have had trouble with too. But it's just it's kind of interesting how it's wholesome yet not. But by the time I got to the end, I thought they ended the series very well. So anyways, I got a tiny bit of pushback about, I can't believe you don't like Ted Lasso, Patty. But actually, you know what? I came around by the time I got to the end. So anyways, I stand corrected. The other show we watched is Lessons in Chemistry, and I have not read the book. I meant to read the book, but the show was great. All these shows I'm going to talk about, I think, basically are on Apple TV right now. So I don't know if they did a good job of translating the book to screen. And if I'd read the book, I would probably, have that feeling of how is anybody understanding this? They don't have enough backstory, that feeling. But it all worked. Brie Larson was amazing. Really enjoyed that. And then my daughter suggested another show on Apple TV called The After Party. And it was so much fun. So the idea of this show is there is a high school reunion and there is an after party after the reunion. It's a 15-year high school reunion. And one of the people from the party, it's actually the party's at his house. He's become a star, kind of a movie star and recording star, and he dies. So that's the beginning. It's all about his murder. And so there's this handful of people at the party at this spectacular house, and so we need to figure out who did it. So each episode they interview one suspect, and as the detective says, I want you to tell me your whole story about this whole night. I want to see your mind movie. And so every episode, once they start telling their story, is done in a different movie genre. So there's one that's sort of an action movie. One is a rom-com. There's one that is actually animated. There's more like a thriller, just like every genre you can think of. And so the whole thing is very funny. And then that added layer is just makes it that much funnier. Oh, one of the things is a Wes Anderson style movie. So my husband and I we kind of know what that vibe is, but we realized we haven't really seen very many Wes Anderson movies. So that's going to be on our list to kind of knock that off. And Wes Anderson did what's it called? The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and the animated one is a little bit like that, I believe. I could be wrong about that. Anyways, super fun. Then there's a second season. We're like, how in the world is there a second season to The After Party? But this is it's a different situation where there's a wedding and then there's an after party after the reception. So same kind of thing. And both of them very fun. So definitely check that out. We were trying to figure out what we're going to watch next. Maybe it's a Wes Anderson movie. I don't know. On my own, for my own stitching and just TV watching time, I am still working through Virgin River. I think I talked about that last time. I'm somewhere in season 4, so I kind of talked about what that's about. It's not exactly a new show, but I'm really enjoying it. And once I found out that the main character, her name's Mel, she seemed vaguely familiar, and she was Sophie on This Is Us, and then that just made me like it that much more. So that's what's going on there. We really realized we need to start watching some more movies. So maybe during the Christmas break, we might actually watch a few more movies. I'm up for suggestions if you have any. All right, for the last segment, this part of the podcast changes from podcast to podcast, and it's going to be a little bit of a potpourri today because I just make notes of things that I want to tell you. And this one is more in the housekeeping kind of vein. So we have a coffee pot that it has one of those kind of stainless steel thermoses. It's the coffee, instead of going into a glass carafe, it's a stainless steel thermos carafe. And we had noticed for a while that it was getting kind of yucky inside there. And so we tried all kinds of things to clean it. My husband worked in the restaurant, business when he was in his 20s, and they would put like ice and salt in it and swirl it around for glass carafes. We tried absolutely everything to really clean this out, and nothing really worked. And so then we started looking for a replacement because it just felt like, this is gross. I don't want whatever is just like hanging out in the bottom of this coffee pot in my coffee. But it's a Black & Decker, and there's nothing wrong with the coffee maker. We like the coffee maker, but cannot find a replacement carafe. So we started, for 6 months, we've been kind of looking for another coffee maker, but feel bad about buying it because I don't want to throw something away that's actually working. So I started Googling, and I found a YouTube video with this little tip, and that is to put a dishwasher pod, like a finished dishwasher pod, in the coffee pot, fill it with water, leave it overnight. And that's it. So I'm like, what do I got to lose? So I do that. The next morning, I just dump out this absolute black sludge, wash the thing out, and it looks absolutely brand new, spanking new, stainless steel interior. And I was absolutely blown away. It saved us $70 for buying a new coffee maker. So if you have an issue like that, it was like a miracle cure for me. So while we're talking about kitchen stuff, or cleaning rather, I've mentioned that I switched over to the Clean People brand laundry sheets. I was trying to get away from the microplastics, like those Finnish dishwasher pods that work miracles. I've used liquid, but then I started using the Kirkland Signature version of Tide Pods for a while, but feeling vaguely guilty about microplastics. So Clean People laundry sheets, they work beautifully. They come in a cardboard box. There's absolutely no waste. Love them. You can get some really good deals online, and then they absolutely spam you with deals every single week until I actually sent them a very nasty email and said, I've tried to unsubscribe so many times, and if you don't do this, I'm going to report you as spam. And then a human typed back to me like, we are so sorry, I'm unsubscribing you manually right now. So I love them, and I want the good deal, but I guess I only want it when I need it, and I have plenty for now. Anyways, Clean People. So I decided I would also try the Clean People dishwasher pods. And so we've been using those for a while. And so they are also, it's a pod, but somehow it's a plant-based pod, so it's not microplastics. And it's not as good as Finish, but it's pretty good. So it's like, I guess like in the laundry, I don't feel like I'm giving up anything. So for these, it's like, I don't know, I'm mixed. It's like, I don't know, 85% is good, like it's close. So I don't know. I'm not sure I bought a pretty big bag. So I don't know if I will purchase them again. So that's kind of where I fall on those. If you have another brand, besides Clean People, where you've tried the laundry pods that are, that are not laundry, dishwasher pods that work really well, that don't have any microplastics, let me know about that. So, we're getting to the end of the year, which means, we're starting to reflect a little bit on how this year went. And I guess maybe next year I'll do a little bit of an update. I feel like I did fairly well on most of my goals for this year. But one thing that I've decided is going to be one of my things that I want to work on next year is I kind of want to upgrade myself. Like I've been really unhappy with my hair lately. And so I started Googling. I'm I'm going to figure out how to do my hair that seems a little bit more updated and perhaps a little less fussy. Like when I travel, I hate that I need to bring like a flat iron and a curling iron. It's like, can I figure something out that's a little less of a production, but works for me? And so I came across a YouTube channel called Justin Hickox. The guy is Justin Hickox. And again, I will put a link in the show notes. And he does hair videos. And he does this great thing where people send him photos of themselves. And then he walks through, okay, like this is what we can do to improve this. This is kind of, it sounds negative to say this is what you're doing wrong. And he's very positive. He's just like, given your face shape, I think that some layering here is going to help, lift up your cheekbones, and some bangs here is going to soften up this. And, he's very kind of photoshops it as he's doing it. In a kind of a rudimentary way, but it works. And then he's got all these like styling, I have kind of longer hair, and his wife has longer hair. So there's these tips on how to style your bangs and stuff. So anyways, he's like just a treasure trove of information on hair. And so I'm just going to like one at a time, I'm going to figure out my hair. I'm going to figure out skincare and upgrading like my makeup and then clothes. I feel like I kind of did this a while ago, but I feel like at this point, nothing's working. And so in some ways, I think next year, that sounds so self-centered, but I think my project might be me, and to just figure out my like decisions on how to do each of these things and do them well, and then set them aside for a while. So that's another thing that I'm going to be, thinking about and kind of journaling about and doing a little research. If you have any favorite YouTubers or whatever, I'm open for tips. Totally. So this will be the last podcast for 2023. So thank you so much for hanging with me this year. I love to podcast. I know I kind of, as I'm kind of finding my feet with being an empty nester and lots of projects around the house, I didn't podcast as much as I would have liked to. So that's another goal for me in 2024, is to get back on my every other week schedule, because I do love doing it. And one of the things that holds me back from podcasting is that I think a lot of my creative energy of this year has gone into the house and all the renovations and things we've been doing there, which has left me a little bit creatively dry for things like quilting. And so I think a lot of the big stuff is over for now. And I'm hoping to really just get back into a habit of every single day getting in there and doing something creatively. And I think that will be really good for my mental health, and I'll feel better about how I'm spending my time, and I'll be making some beautiful quilts, hopefully. So, and then I will have more to talk about with you guys. So I'm going to try to get back on a more regular schedule next year. Before we go, I also want to thank S.J. Steinbeck for your review on Apple Podcasts. I absolutely appreciate anyone who takes the time to do that. Thank you for your kind words. She talked about it just, feeling like we're sitting down with a friend to have a cup of tea and a chat when we have a lot of mutual interest. And that's exactly how I think about this podcast. So thank you for hanging with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. As always, all the links that I talk about, all the things I talk about, I put in my show notes at the Simple Handmade Everyday blog at kristenesser.com. You can find me at Kristen Esser on Instagram, and please consider joining the Simple Handmade Everyday private Facebook group so that we can keep this conversation going. I love it when you guys share what you guys are making over there. I haven't been great about posting myself, so I appreciate you guys just sharing with each other, because we all love to see what you're making. Have a great week.